I graduated from Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute in 2014 with a Master of Fine Arts degree. I know it sounds a bit weird, fine arts degree offered by a technological, mostly engineering-focused university, but it kind of makes sense since I mostly use logic and reason. I mostly use logic and reason to create something artistic and sensuous. So when I was in grad school, apart from creating arts, attending class, and lab research, I'm also a pretty hardcore sword and sorcerer gamer, and I'm a huge Elder Scrolls series fan. So apparently my favorite at the time was Skyrim. I played through the game multiple times since there were some additional DLCs coming out. First time I played as a dual-wielding warrior, then a destruction school mage. And at the third time, I decided to take a more stealthy approach as a thief. One of the skills a thief mostly develops is apparently alchemy. So I crafted potions and poisons to either significantly boost my own power or to weaken the opponents. Yeah, just in case you're not familiar with Skyrim, the way alchemy in Skyrim and earlier Elder Scrolls franchise work is that you harvest ingredients in the game world, and each ingredient will have its own features. For example, like here we have a large antler and a Sabrine cat tooth, and they both have 4 different features. And you grind and combine these ingredients to make a potion, and the features these ingredients share will be greatly fortified. For example, we have a shared feature of restore stamina here. It is possible, and we get a potion of restore stamina. It is possible that since I've been spending so much time exploring the land of Skyrim, the game mechanism itself started to subtly influence my pipeline to create my own artworks, and especially the game's alchemy mechanism. So after I finished my study at RPI and graduated with a master's degree, I moved to West Coast and started a collaboration with an electronic dance music producer in LA. We initiated an EDM audiovisual project named Karma Fields. And as the visual director of Karma Fields, I design and implement generative systems through programming and produce audiovisual contents for the project, including music videos, which I'm going to show you later, and album arts, for example, like this one, and a live set installation named The Hacks last year. My original strategy is to design one generative system as the visual theme for the debut album as a way to maintain visual consistency. But later I felt the visual variations are pretty limited in this way. And this is when my gaming experience kicked in. I was thinking, what if I pick a few mathematical models as ingredients? And what if I algorithmically mix and match the structure features and create some visuals out of them, just like brewing a bottle potion in Skyrim? Since I'm limiting my initial ingredients, the result would still generally remain consistent, while at the same time showing diversity based on the way I combine these ingredients together. So these are the ingredients I picked for the Karma Fields project for its last album. And just going to go over them one by one real quick. And the first one is a Voronoi diagram. It is basically a partitioning of a plant into regions based on distance to seeds in a specific subset of the plant. For example, you can see the seeds are represented as white dots here. And for each seed, there's a corresponding region. And all the points in this region is closer to the corresponding seed than the rest of the seeds in distance. And this model is widely used in architecture and urban planning, but here I'm just going to use it as one of the ingredients for my generative systems. And you can also develop a few other variations out of the Voronoi diagram. For example, it's a geometric duograph, Delaunay triangulation. Basically, you're connecting the seeds themselves and making them fall into networks of triangles. And I can also further subdivide each Voronoi cell by its seeds with its boundary nodes and become something look like this. Moving on to the next ingredient. Bezier curve is a parametric curve consisting of anchor points, which the curve itself passes through, and control points, which through we compute the interpolation, thus determine the shape of this curve. And the image here demonstrates a cubic Bezier curve in which P0 and P3 are the starting and ending point of the curve, and P1 and P2 apparently provide its directional information. And the third one I'm going to talk about is force-directed field. And to put it simple, we put particles and simulated forces, for example, like basic attractors and repulsors, into the environment and generate the motion paths of all the particles under the additive influence of all the forces. And eventually, it would reach mechanical equilibrium state. The fourth element is Kwok tree, and it represents a partition of space by decomposing the region into 4 subquadrants. The same rule can be applied to any of the children quadrants in a recursive way. And the fractal dimension of each branch doesn't necessarily need to be equal. In a later karma fields project, I specified a subdivision of a Kwok tree based on the data that I feed into the generative systems, and you'll see it with your own eyes later. So, look, this is not a mathematics class to confuse you guys, so I'm going to show you actual demos and works that have been built by mixing all those algorithmic ingredients I mentioned earlier. So, in March 2015, Karma Fields released its debut music video named Build the Cities, featuring the Estonia pop singer Curly. And here is the Alchemy formula for Build the Cities. So basically, I extend the Kwok tree structure to its 3-dimensional version, known as Oak tree. And it generally becomes a dynamic subdivided cubic cell, which is able to multiply based on a designated distribution pattern. And speaking of the distribution pattern, it is determined by both the RGB sequence and depth sequence of Curly singing footage. And I'm going to show you a couple of real-time demos here. Oh, awesome. I almost forgot the Bezier curve. I also use the boundary nodes of each cell to generate a consecutive group of Bezier curve segments. And I'm going to switch to real-time demos maybe. Takes a little while, but come on. Okay, I'll just look at this screen. So basically, you have a cubic cell here. I can navigate it a little bit, and I can randomly pick a child unit and make it subdivide. See some details. And I can reverse its motion pattern, so the smaller cells tend to stick to its original position, and the parental one seems to move in a more wider and crazier pattern. And maybe reverse it back. We can reset this cubic cell. And now I'm going to show the Bezier curve it contains. The Bezier curve itself can subdivide with its parental cubic cell, for example, like this. You can take a closer look at it. Maybe disable the framework of the cubic cell. But as I mentioned, I still need to feed in all the RGB sequence data and the depth sequence data into the system. So this is how it looks when these two things are combined. Okay, so this time I will just make it multiply 100 times each time I click the subdivide button. And you can see there's some facial features gradually emerge from these chaotic sets of Bezier curves. It gets super jittering as well because there's huge amount of graphics generated in there. Okay, let's just move to the side of the face. And I'm going to play a teaser of Build the City's music videos.
Miles of fire, I'm losing ground, and in the flashing, my world comes crashing down. I'm left in nowhere, no place to hide, out in the open, like ashes in the sky. I could be losing. I'm moving I lit the flames, light up the future, making empires of sorrow. And she when she's become laughter, you burn the bridges to build the city. I lit the flames, light up the future, making empires of sorrow. And she when she's become laughter, you burn the bridges to build the city.
So yeah, that's it. Thanks. So moving on to the next project. So the second project I'm going to talk about is Skyline, also Karma Field's music video, released in September 2015. So in general, it contains two types of Voronoi seeds. I'm going to first show you the formula here. All the Voronoi seeds are driven by simulated forces placed in the environment. So there are two types of seeds. Type 1 are attached to the audio spectrum. So basically I map their position with different frequency bands of the soundtrack. And type 2 are attached to the RGB sequence of the singer footage. So the neighboring threshold between all the seeds are mapped based on the pixel data of the corresponding frame within the RGB sequence. For example, if the pixel tends to be darker, the threshold gets closer, something like that. And I'm going to show you guys a real-time demo as well. And this demo, it just gets a real-time webcam image with my, probably we'll just test this with my face. Let's see. Cool. I think just turn on the camera image. We can definitely generate some, oops. Where's the, okay. Oh, it tends to get too bright, but anyway. Maybe just invert the background. Get any better? The lighting seems to be a bit weird, but yeah, let's just stop here and maybe generate some Voronoi cells out of it. Switch to different patterns. But yeah, this is just a very basic demo of the Skyline, of the generative systems in Skyline. And also I'm going to play a teaser video of Skyline. Oops. Okay, moving on to the next project. So in November 2015, we released another music video, Stick Up, featuring Julius Lewis as the vocalist. So in this one, I kind of similar to the 3D extension of Quadtree in Build the Cities, but this time I extend the Quadtree element in a more like a 2.5D manner, making it an approaching infinite layers of Quadtrees instead. Also, how the pattern subdivision works in StickUp is kind of similar to Build the City as well, but instead of using RGB sequence, I use lyrics from the song and rasterize them as bitmap and feeding them into the generative systems. And here is a short demo of it. You will notice a lot of like visual similarities in this one with the one of Build the Cities. But apparently these just a Quadtree with a certain depth, and I can make the second and third layers of Quadtree subdivide into a corresponding letter. We'll just go with hello world in here. And yeah, I'm gonna skip the video of Stick Up due to its super long length, but let's move on to the next one. In January 2016, we released yet another music video for a very short teaser called The Edge of the World. It also serves the entire album teaser. So it is kind of like a combination of rules in Stick Up and Skyline. So I reused the 2.5D Quadtree, but this time I also used the geometric centers of each Quadtree leaf as a seed. And collectively, it generates multiple layers of Voronoi networks. And also for this one, oops. And also for this one, I didn't use any additional track data like the audio spectrum or lyrics, nothing like that. And there is a real-time demo for this one. Also for the Bezier curves, this time I just use them as the motion paths of these generating particles instead of displaying the entire segments of the Bezier curve. And I can make them subdivide. Gets a bit crazy. Maybe generate networks of Voronoi cell and create some random displacement. Generate some geometric shape out of it. And maybe some more. And randomize your like ratio within each cell. So you can notice it still share a lot of similarities with the previous generative systems. So I'm going to play the footage of Edge of the World. Let's see how it works with the music. Okay. Last one. Greatness is also releasing early 2016, featuring the East Coast hip hop artist Talib Kweli. So here's the Alchemy formula for greatness. It's kind of similar to Edge of the World. It's also a combination of rules in StickUp and Skyline, but with slightly modified Alchemy formula. So I'm getting a totally different results. So its visual is a gathering of massive amount of Voronoi cells into also two different types. Types 1 are attached to the RGB sequence, same as Skyline, but its cells, you can notice, are further subdivided from their geometrical center. So in this case, you can get some more detailed mapped pattern with less number of Voronoi cells. And cell type 2 are attached to the vertices of the lyrics, but unlike StickUp, I'm not using lyrics simply as bitmap this time, but I access them as vector data through a library called generative, and I'll show you a demo of vertices data generating a Voronoi cell. Okay, let's still go with Hello World. And we can place some vertices along the contour of these characters and maybe add more of it. Maybe close the text shape itself and the trail and display some Voronoi structure. And As you can see, the shape of Hello World slowly start to emerge when I add exceeding amount of Voronoi cell into it. And this is the principal rules of generating the entire lyrics video for the Greatness music video. And I think we have enough time to play the full-length video here, since this is the last one. Yes, let's do it.
Mr. Robot, music got him moving now. This is a show shot to music got him to get loose as a wet noodle. Got him dancing on the Lanciers, fancy as pet poodles. Got him downtown swinging like dance a little fame. Send my enemies back to the essence from which you came. What inspired you? What is it you're trying to do? Somebody told you should probably give it up. They lied to you. Never aspire to the average or the mediocre. Let the greatness inside of you take over. Stockbroker or an activist, a soldier or a pacifist. Life and chain reaction, you a link or you a catalyst. Walk in the house of God, your house of cards starts collapsing. Fashion killer higher than villains and ass. Bubble title, you provoking a reaction? Are you slow or are you fast, man? Are you smoking or you passing? You wishing or you hoping? Are you hoping for some action? As serious as heart attacks, man? Am I joking? Am I laughing? If you see me cracking, smiling, I got paid tonight. I'm with my hair like some mama made a plate of rice. You say you need to dumb it down like that's a great advice. Nah, I'm way too busy showing them what greatness like. Yeah, let it rock. Everywhere I go, I get a standing ovation. Speaking the codes, my game got no imitation. It's innovation. You are now experiencing greatness. 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 Yeah, you are now experiencing. I'm prepared for the greatness. I'm spin a flow that'll strip your soul bare and naked. I ain't scared to say shit. Yeah, God is the greatest, no joke. I have my foes going through spiritual anguish, cause I'm clearly his favorite. Never here for the fake shows, staring at the so-called gangsters. The OGs with nothing to play, cause it's much more than entertainment. Still hit on my mother, walking the road, I saw my name is my name.
I guess this is the last project, and finally there's some shameless self-promotion. You can check out the full length of my previous projects on my website. And thank you guys for coming here, I guess. Thank you. That's it.